Humans live with an inherent pursuit of happiness, often idealizing it as a fundamental truth of life that must be painstakingly achieved. Yet, suffering is the spice of life, and happiness is merely a simple journey. In this novel, the main character Siddhartha and his friend are dissatisfied with the ready-made answers provided by the Brahmins. Their yearning to understand the truth and reach an ultimate reality drives them to leave their luxurious lives in search of spiritual enlightenment. The spiritual journey is a personal one. On this path, one can only walk alone, as no one can teach or guide another to wisdom. Knowledge can be shared, but wisdom cannot. They choose to live as wanderers, homeless, leaving behind the known for the unknown. This is not an easy life, but it is one they choose. When they are in a hurry, they rush. When they are at ease, they meditate. When seeking answers, they wait. And as they move from one place to another, they become more and more connected to their goal. However, in the end, they part ways after encountering the Buddha. After hearing legends about the Enlightened One and embarking on their own quest, both are struck by the serene calmness and profound simplicity of his teachings. Govinda, Siddhartha's friend, decides to stay behind and become his disciple, while Siddhartha, despite his deep respect for what he has learned, chooses to continue pursuing other personal goals. This journey takes him across space and time, settling in a city, falling in love, and years later, becoming a merchant. Yet, these experiences cannot give him lasting peace, and he leaves once again. At his next stop, which becomes his final destination, he lives in a small house by a river with an old ferryman. The old ferryman is a simple, quiet man, but possesses an unmatched wisdom that allows him to understand anyone. He lives in his own reality. After many years of instability and the burden of relentless searching, Siddhartha finally finds peace in a moment of unexpected clarity. At the end of his life, Govinda, who is still tirelessly seeking enlightenment, hears about an old ferryman who always whispers about the answers. This ferryman is Siddhartha, who has now taken on the role of his former teacher on that very river. When Govinda tells Siddhartha that he is still a seeker, his old friend shares what he has learned through all these years. When someone is searching, they often only see what their eyes want to see. In reality, they can't find anything at all, nor achieve anything, because they are only thinking about what they want to find. They have just one goal, and they are obsessed with that goal. Searching means having a target, but discovering means being free, open, and having no goals at all. Make sure to subscribe to the channel before receiving the valuable content from the book. Smaller expectations, greater happiness. The story of Siddhartha and his friend unfolds in a world different from our own. It's a simpler, less tumultuous world. Their journey is not the most fanciful path we might pursue. The quest for perfection is, in fact, a more noble aspiration than many of the desires we chase in modern life. Money, status, pleasure, and so on. Yet, the core issue of every desire and journey remains the same. It is the root of all self-inflicted suffering. Happiness, or more accurately, the absence of unhappiness, stems from the relationship between our subjective expectations and objective reality. Over time, a sense of contentment arises when objective reality aligns with and exceeds our subjective expectations. We all have some influence over what reality delivers, but ultimately, much of it is beyond our control. The only solution is to adjust our expectations by rearranging our personal desires. In certain schools of spiritual thought, such as Buddhism, the answer to happiness is to minimize or eliminate desires, not just the harmful ones but also the virtuous aspirations that lead to an endless search, a pursuit both Siddhartha and Govinda devoted their lives to. However, the likelihood of an ordinary person giving up all desires and attaining enlightenment is slim. Therefore, what anyone can learn and achieve is to expand their fixed zone. We all have things we long for and goals we wish to attain. Many of these desires can be modified. Indeed, earning more money can make our lives better, and winning an award or receiving praise from someone we admire can affirm our self-worth. But in a world where people could live peacefully without those things, chances are you could too. The truth is, there is always a world somewhere where contentment exists, regardless of what you desire. When we cling to our desires, we often try to hold on tightly to them. We invest our time, energy, and spirit, developing a one-dimensional obsession that leads to suffering whenever reality fails to meet our expectations. This is self-satisfaction in the pursuit of a specific joy. The only way to avoid this trap is to expand your fixed zone when necessary. Loosening your expectations helps you better respond to feedback from objective reality. This can only be achieved by being willing to step back and let go. Shrinking and adjusting our subjective expectations is the way to free ourselves from distress. Better questions, better life. One reason we get stuck holding on to things, making it hard to let go, is that from the very beginning we often take the wrong first steps. We start with the wrong questions. Almost everything that drives you to take action begins with a question, whether you realize it or not. The simple reason is that before you crave an answer, you need to clarify what you're seeking. Most things we desire arise from borrowed ideas. Depending on the culture and environment we grow up in, we are shaped by economic, social, and mental frameworks before we're mature enough to understand better. By the time we reach adulthood, many ideas have become so ingrained in our minds that we hardly recognize them. For instance, the question of meaning is one such case. In Western society, we are increasingly becoming more secular. Religion is waning. You might see this as good or bad, but in a way it raises a question. What is the meaning of life? What truly matters? Why? In an overarching religious environment, the answers to these questions become so obvious that even when they echo in your mind repeatedly, they don't cause suffering because the belief in existence itself is the answer. However, in a more secular context, these questions can lead to a convoluted sense of nihilism, with the belief that nothing truly matters. This fixation can lead to more suffering than we might imagine. Here's a perspective shared by Alan Watts. If this universe is meaningless, then the meaning and purpose of a dance is simply to dance. By redefining the context and relationship between things, we can entirely negate the underlying pain of a meaningless life, much like Alan Watts metaphorically suggests. Who are you to assign meaning to a world that is inherently what it is? A world you don't even fully understand? Perhaps your lens for viewing this life has been flawed, and your mind may not even be capable of asking the right questions. Questions create context. Context defines boundaries. Boundaries shape definitions, and those definitions ultimately limit or enhance your subjective ability to live happily or in suffering. The solution to most issues doesn't lie in eradicating those problems, but rather in allowing you to ask better questions. Letting go. Both Siddhartha and Govinda dedicated their entire lives to seeking enlightenment, but it wasn't until they simply stopped searching that they could find it. The questions that had haunted them for so long were misguided. Their inability to re-examine their initial thoughts caused them to waste far too many years chasing an entirely wrong answer. Human beings are biologically programmed to desire everything. This longing is encoded in the existence machine we call our bodies. However, this desire leads to a narrow fixation that prevents us from experiencing reality in a more joyful and less painful way. To mitigate this, we need to cultivate flexibility to reshape our desires as we become more connected to objective reality. We must learn to let go of the rigid, subjective expectations we cling to in order to find new paths that align better with reality, gradually moving from searching to discovering. This journey will require a great deal of effort and the courage to face ourselves, to decide that perhaps it's time to view everything from a different angle, with a more accurate and valuable question. Avoiding suffering isn't easy, but it is, in fact, quite simple. You just need to take the right steps. The spiritual journey is a self-directed path. On this journey, one can only walk alone, for no one else can teach or guide you toward wisdom. People can share knowledge, but wisdom cannot be transmitted. Thank you for watching the video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more valuable videos.